Good evening. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Governance Committee on Tuesday, the 6th of February 2024. Before we start this evening, I would just like to outline some housekeeping rules, usual stuff. There are no planned fire alarms, so if it does sound, please leave via the emergency exits. And can I request that all mobile phones are either kept on silent or switched off? Thank you. Okay, introductions. I think I'll start with this charming gentleman on my left.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chris Moyster, and I'm the Director of Governance.
Good evening. My name's Louise Mattinson. I'm the Director of Finance and Section 151 Officer.
Good evening, Peter Gabbett, Councillor for Loss-the-Core Ward.
Dawn Highton, Head of Audit and Risk.
Georgie Jones, I'm a Director at Grant Thornton and we're the Council's external auditors.
I'm Jean Waddington, Principal Financial Accountant.
I'm Jackie Murray, Senior Auditor.
Holly Wormsley, Head of HR.
Peter Pillinger, Councillor for Buckshall and Worden.
Will King, Councillor for Longton and Hutton West.
Claire Gornall, Democratic Services Officer.
Evening all, Wesley Roberts, Councillor for Buckshall and Worden and Vice Chair.
And I'm Councillor Colin Sharples, Chair of this committee and the member for Earnshaw Bridge. Members of the committee are attending in person here at the Civic Centre. Other members of council may also dial into the meeting via Teams to observe and or participate in the meeting. I don't think there's anybody. Oh yes, we've got one. For Catherine. This meeting is live streamed on YouTube. The web link for this can be found on the council's website. Members on Teams are asked to keep their microphone on mute and only unmute when they wish to speak. And could I remind members to unmute themselves once they have finished speaking to enable the meeting to proceed smoothly. Okay, there is a slight change to the order of the agenda this evening. The item 7, the internal audit progress report, will be brought forward to item 4. That's to allow one of the officers to leave early, who has to leave early. And I'll now move on to the agenda. Welcome, Damien. Are there any apologies?
Yes, Chair. There's Councillor Margaret Smith and Councillor Ange Turner have both submitted their apologies, and Councillor Will King is here as a substitute for Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Welcome, Will, and thank you for substituting. Are there any declarations of interest? Does anyone have any interest to declare? None? In that case, we'll go on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting. I have the minutes of the last meeting in front of me for approval. Are there any points of accuracy on the minutes, or can we just propose the minutes for approval?
Propose those, Chair.
Propose.
Seconded.
Okay. No points of accuracy to discuss, no? Okay. And this can be found on page 7 of the main agenda. And I'll ask Dawn Highton. Oh, it's not, it's okay.
So this is the Internal Audit Interim Report, which covers the period September up to December 2023. And it gives you an overview of the work of the internal audit team for that period and the overall performance of our internal audit team. So members are asked to note the progress in relation to the internal audit plan. If I draw your attention to paragraph 6, this provides you with a bit more information about the number of auditable days that we're providing this year. And by the time the plan is completed, we're looking to have delivered 274 audit days for South Ribble. Appendix A, it provides you a bit of a snapshot of the overall progress that the internal audit team has made so far in relation to the audit plan. So this provides you with the reviews that we've completed to date and the associated assurance rating that we've awarded for those reviews. If I draw your attention to table 8, it provides you with some information about those reviews that we've completed recently, and we've provided you with the assurance rating awarded and details of the corresponding appendix, which provides the full report for that audit review. You can see within that period, we have got 2 limited assurance reports, and we have the respective heads of service here today if you have any further questions about the progress of the agreed actions for those reports. So paragraph 9, we've outlined the additional work that internal audit continue to deliver for the council, and that is participation within various project teams and groups, providing ongoing advice on details in relation to internal control, risk management and governance. As a reminder, in table 10, we've given you details of the assurance ratings that we've awarded covering the 2 6-monthly plans to date. So it gives you details of the full, substantial, adequate and limited ratings for this year to date. Paragraph 12 provides you with details in relation to the performance of the internal audit team. And as you can see with this Appendix G, there's no areas of concern at the moment, and the audit team are on track to achieve the plan. You can also see that we continue to receive good satisfaction ratings from our feedback surveys. The percentage of agreed actions still remains below the 90% target, but you may remember that with previous updates, the percentage completion for that area is going in the right direction. By the end of the audit year, we anticipate that we will be around about the 90% mark. So we've made a massive improvement on that since we've come out of the COVID period. So I'm happy to take any questions that members may have on the report today.
Thank you, Jackie. Quick question from me. I'm not something I don't quite understand. It says here the limited is 3, but there's only 2 listed here. What's the other one? There's 2 listed on page 8.
Yes, so the limiteds we've awarded today is the 2 which were in quarter 3, the physical security and the driving licence checks, and the third one was from June, July last year, which was sundry debtors. Yeah, that was a narrow scope review. That was the age debt reports.
I recall. Okay, I'll throw this. Thank you very much for that report. I'll throw this open to committee. Any questions? Don't have to. Thanks, David.
Page 9, key recommendation 1. It refers to the onboarding of the contractors not properly risk manage.
It's the wrong agenda item on the internal audit report.
So I do apologise.
Not to worry. Peter, did you have any queries on this one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Whilst I know obviously there's a couple of limiteds in there, assurance rating, which isn't the best, and we hope to improve on that. You can clearly see that the management actions been implemented on the driver licence checks, which is great to see. And the physical security and environmental controls, that says it's due to be implemented, but do we know where that's at? There seem to be quite a lot of actions on there, at which point I think it could be quite costly.
Adam, would you like to come in to answer that one?
Yes, of course, Chair. Thank you. You are correct. There are quite a significant amount of items that have been identified of actions that need to be taken across the server rooms in Chorley and in South Ribble and the comms room. So my team, the property team, are currently collating quotes on the works that are needed to be undertaken. There are items on there that are around procedural issues around contractors following the correct process going into server rooms and informing IT and property services. So we have actioned those processes and are sharing them wider within the council.
Adam, sorry for interrupting. We're just having a few technical problems here. Can we just ask you to hold for a second?
Yeah, no problem.
We can't solve the problem here. Perhaps if you could just speak up a little bit, Adam, or turn your sound up a little. Thank you. Carry on.
Is that any better?
It's a little bit worse, that.
Is it?
Hang on a sec. You're on the loop, yeah. Yeah, let's all go on the loop. Try again.
Is that any better? No.
Not really.
Apologies. Sorry, is that working? Like I said, I've got my headset on. But...
We'll try again. We'll persevere, Adam.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I'll speak up. We are just waiting for a few more quotes to understand the cost implications to undertake these works to the server room, the comms room in the Civic Centre. We should have those costs by the next week or so, and then I'll be presenting them to the senior management team just to discuss next steps. But they are items that we'll need to undertake in order to secure our infrastructure.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, you want to come back? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Just to follow up, obviously I understand the role of audit, and we have the first sort of wave of controls, and it goes through, and that's the way audit ends up catching it. But on the rating that Salford Council, who did the review, have put on it, there are 11 essential ones. Whose responsibility was it to look after them in the first place? Because some of them seem like they should have already been in place, and it's only the audit of picking it up. And it's, whilst this particular one obviously is quite large, and that an audit has done its job, which I know is governance, it just brings into question the first sort of line of defence, which I think needs addressing.
Do you want to come back, Adam?
Yeah, I can do. I don't really have an answer for that. Like I say, I started in April this year. From my side of things, I do think there are specialist knowledge and expertise required around server rooms, so I could potentially say that the property team and maybe IT as well didn't have the appropriate experience or knowledge around this and this audit. Like I said, we did go out to Salford Council to provide some specialist support. So yeah, unfortunately these actions hadn't been taken previously, but we are looking at how we can implement them as soon as possible.
Thank you, Adam.
If I may.
Yeah, great. Please do.
Thank you. I'll try and bolster a little bit of what Adam has said there. I think Councillor Gabbert has probably, picked up on one of the key issues, which is some of these functions have fallen between different services, and there's been working independently and not perhaps having that overline lines of communication between works being done. Part of the changes to the management structure and the responsibilities that have taken place in the last couple of years is trying to bring some of those functions together. That's why Adam's got is here with overall responsibility and introducing this. This is part of his role moving forward. So whilst I think Councillor Gabbert's quite right saying, how did we get to this point? How did this happen in the past? It's because different functions were being delivered by different people without that coordination, and that's part of the role that property will pick up moving forward, is that making sure that the different groups who may be working in an area are doing so under a single guiding mind.
Thank you for that, Chris. Does that help? Happy with that? Yeah. Are there any other questions? Yes, Peter.
Do we have any indication on this IC stuff? Because I'd made exactly the same note in my papers of where the sharing, where the weaknesses are between the two councils.
Who would like to answer that one? Dawn? Sorry.
Do you mean if the IT infrastructure is affected? Is that?
Well, some of the infrastructure is in different places, presumably. And what we're getting here is historic stuff that's now been audited and revealed to be less than adequate. So some of it's come out, presumably some of it's in the responsibility of Chorley Council and some of South Ribble Council. No, it doesn't work that way.
No,
okay.
No, this audit actually covered the server rooms at both Chorley and South Ribble, and there are specific actions for both. So in terms of how those actions will be implemented, it will be actions taken at both councils.
Yeah, so I was asking, what's the proportions between each? Because it's not clear to me. I don't know where server room C or A or whatever it is that's mentioned in this report. I don't know which one's which, whether it's in South Ribble or Chorley.
Oh, right. Sorry. I understand. Yeah. To be honest, the actions, a lot of them affected both. And we're going to have to take the same action at both sites. So where we've put it, it's happening at DC1, C1, DC2. It's there. I think from memory, and I can confirm this, I think DC was
Town Hall, wasn't it?
Yeah, Chorley's data centres are referred to as DC1 and DC2, and South Ribble's data centre are referred as DC3 and CR4.
I'm still, Mr. Chairman, not clear on the liabilities of South Ribble Borough Council, which is my concern, as opposed to those that relate to Chorley, which are not my concern as part of this governance committee. So I would have liked to have seen, in addition to the information we have, some indication when the costings come in, a breakdown of what it is for each council.
Yeah.
Sorry, we wouldn't be bringing the costings to this committee because it's the actions, the improvement actions to remedy the issues. I take your point. I think in relation to understanding what the issues are for South Ribble and what the issues are for Chorley, I think as Dawn has said in the body of the report, it does try to identify which matters are matters for South Ribble and which are matters for Chorley. I think the point that Dawn is making is that it does break them out, but then says, but it's the same issue at both. Now, it's not your concern as a committee as to how much that's going to cost the council. Your concern is to be assured that we are taking actions to put it right, to address the governance failings. So the costs will be addressed elsewhere, and you'll have a chance to ask those kind of questions to either cabinet or even potentially through scrutiny if you choose.
I'm sorry. I think I would disagree to a little extent. I understand the function of governance, but if there is substantial financial implications for this council, then there are risk factors involved, and I think the risk factors are a matter for governance.
So only to say at the moment, yes, there's a couple of ifs in there, and I think it's very difficult for me to say. I mean, I'm still waiting on some of the costings to come back. If it were the case that this then impacts on the council strategic risk register, then yes, of course, it would come back as part of that. But sorry, I was concentrating on this report. I take your point, Councillor Pillinger. Apology.
Thank you both. Did you have anything to add, Weston? Yeah, okay. Are there any other comments or questions on this one? Any comments from members not on committee? No? Okay. This item's just for noting, isn't it? Yep. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Adam. I know you've got other things to shoot off and do, but thanks for attending. Thanks, Jackie, for the report.
Thank you very much.
Moving on. What is now item 5 is the external auditors report. Welcome, Georgia. Nice to see you again. And over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So the first report we've got on the agenda is the auditor's annual report. So this relates to our value for money work that we do for the council. So what I would say is the thing to note is this relates to arrangements in place in 22-23. So it's a retrospective report on the arrangements in place during that period. So members may recall that we brought our 21-22 auditor's annual report to this committee in August 2023. So the key recommendations and the issues in here are pretty much or are actually the same as the 21-22 report, because obviously that was quite a late timeline, and that was because it took some while to kind of look at those issues that we'd identified and report back on them. So I think one of the key things to note about this is that although the key recommendations are re-reported for 22-23, a lot of that is because the council would not have had a chance to address them, having only, reported to them in August 23. But what we have tried to reflect in the report is that we are happy that the council has made significant progress in addressing those key recommendations in 23-24. So we are happy with the progress made. So although the key recommendations are re-reported, we are happy that the council is putting into place the actions that they committed to in our report that we brought in August. So really kind of those key recommendations are things that have been reported to this committee before. They've been discussed quite a lot. They obviously, some of those came initially from an internal audit report around procurement and contracting. So they have been kind of discussed in quite some detail. So I wasn't prepared to kind of go over those in detail, but obviously I would be happy to take any questions on those. And then the other thing really to draw to your attention is that there are a couple of new improvement recommendations. So again, just as a reminder, improvement recommendations are essentially good practice. So the arrangements the council have in place are absolutely fine and functioning. The improvement recommendation, if you wanted to really kind of, kind of get, even the kind of more good practice, then you could use the improvement recommendations to help you do that. So there are like a couple. So there's one on page 22, which is around the capital programme, just to kind of make sure that those kind of projects within, the first couple of years are really kind of just with the council to review the approach it takes so that they can really kind of make sure they're planned and delivered on appropriate timescale. Now, that's not an uncommon recommendation across councils because, as you'll know, there is a lot of slippage in the capital programmes at the moment because of, various kind of factors still left over from the pandemic and also costs and kind of supply. So it's not really an unusual recommendation to have. And then further on in the report, there's a couple of further ones on pages 31 and 32. And that's just around a suggestion that kind of could use more effective use of benchmarking information. So again, we're not saying the council doesn't use any, but there are potentially other scopes and opportunities to improve that use. And also around one about kind of potentially producing a partnership strategy, a specific strategy for kind of approval and periodic review. Throughout the report, you'll see management's responses to the recommendations. We're content with those responses and that management have kind of, happy to kind of take those forward and those actions forward. So I guess that was always really kind of going to go through initially, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Georgia. Excellent report, I think. Any questions? Any thoughts? Damien, I knew you wouldn't let me down.
Thank you. Somewhere in the report, it mentions the Civica Property Management System, which is a new system that we've taken on board to manage the property assets. And I just wonder, has anybody had any experience of that system and how are the staff finding it? Is it a big improvement on before?
Who would like to answer that one?
Not in a position to.
Yeah, I should have asked Adam. Yeah, he's gone now. Plus we can come back to you with that.
Yeah, that's no problem. I was just curious because I know we've had issues on tying everything together in terms of safety certificates and all the rest of it, and it's all over the place. But now we've spent a significant amount of money on a new system to get everything together. I just like some feedback from the people that are actually using it, the officers that are using the system, just to get some feedback on how are they finding it and is it money well spent, which I'm sure it will be, but we'd just like to hear some feedback if that's possible at some stage. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good question. We can deal with that later, Councillor.
We can bring something back in writing.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from members of the committee? Any other questions? Will?
I just have a point which is on page 7 of the report. It mentions about the fact that there's a under-resource in the procurement function. So just interested to know what issues have led to the under-resourcing and what's now being done to mitigate that.
Probably one for officers.
Yeah. Chris?
Thank you, Councillor King. Yeah, it's actually in one of the key recommendations at page 12. Is that the? Yeah. So we've put some comments in about what we're doing to address that. We've recently looked to restructure the procurement service and introduce more capacity into it. And we're changing the approach of procurement, and this is in part preparing for the new Procurement Act and new legislation that's coming out this year. So we've introduced 2 additional posts into the team, including a new management post, which will start to prepare the strategy document posed within the key recommendation. As to how it happened, the old approach to procurement, which had been undertaken for decade plus, was more of a transactional approach and a supporting on simply the processes and legal obligations of procurement. What we're actually looking to do now with the procurement team is be more proactive with teams and work with them in order so that they can approach the different procurement options to get the most effective one to support what they are looking to do. And part of the reason increasing capacity and changing the structure of the team is to enable specialisms, so we can do thematic specialisms within the team. So they build up that knowledge base around, for example, IT procurements, because that is something that we know we will be regularly doing quite a lot of. And they are quite specialised. The different types of framework agreements and how they operate are quite specialised. So we've moved from one form, which was pretty much computer says yes or no kind of level of support, to a lot more proactivity. Now, what this will also mean within the procurement team is they will take greater ownership of the procurement role. So it won't just be supporting teams through it and expecting managers to pick up that. There'll be a greater level of support, but also the recording and documentation will be retained in the back, which will then feed into improving matters like the contracts register, which we're obliged to publish. So it's pretty much a wholesale change to our approach, and to reflect that, there's more capacity going in.
Perfect, thank you for that. My only follow-up question, which I just wasn't unclear about from here, is those 2 roles, so they're now filled, did you say, and there's no more vacancies for that team?
There is at the moment, because we've only just agreed through council processes to the new structure. Calling's now expired. We've recruited 4 of the posts are currently filled. There's 1 which is the manager post, which we need to fill.
Are there any other questions or comments on this item? Are there any questions or comments from people not on committee? I see nothing. Moving on, final audit. I love the word final. Final audit findings report. Over to you, Georgia.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this report, we brought a version of this, a slightly earlier version, to the committee in November. But now that we are kind of going to imminently sign off the accounts in the next week or 2, we thought it helpful to just bring a slightly updated report. So again, a lot of the issues in here have already been to committee previously. And we're just really kind of now finalising a couple of final queries, and just need to do our final review of kind of the quality and, you know, the things that I have to really sign off on the file and on our kind of work. So we are very close to the end now, very close to signing the accounts. Again, we still anticipate giving an unqualified opinion on the financial statements, which is obviously good news. And this report just really reminds you kind of all the work that we've done in terms of the risks that we originally identified in our audit plan that we brought previously, and mentions the value for money work that I've just kind of talked about. So again, said no kind of almost new big issues. It's just really kind of the areas of kind of land and buildings on page 51. So just reminding you there of kind of some of the things that were ongoing and that we've kind of now finalised. So just looking around kind of the valuation movements and how they were accounted for. So there was some amendments around that. And also kind of we've just got 1 or 2 very final queries around that just to kind of finalise before we're kind of happy to actually sign off that final risk. But I don't anticipate any kind of big issues coming out of those few final queries. And then just a reminder kind of on the next page as well around the pension liability. So that's page 52 of the agenda. Again, my understanding is this, I think this was discussed last time in the previous committee around the kind of council this year, the pension being in surplus for the first time. But there was kind of further work to do that to see whether that whole surplus could be recognised or not because of certain accounting rules. and the work was done, and it was kind of recognised that you couldn't actually acknowledge that surplus in the accounts, so that's been amended through as well. So we're happy that all the required amendments have been made to the accounts, and they are on the agenda tonight for your approval, and really kind of no other kind of significant issues to report to you, and the appendices just actually have the actual changes to the accounts and also any kind of recommendations that we've made coming out of our work. So again, wasn't proposing to kind of say a lot more, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Georgia. It sounds happy. When we sign things off shortly, we'll all be very happy, won't we? We're getting there.
Always, Chair.
Always. Right, okay, I'll throw this open to committee. Has anybody got any questions or comments to make on this item? Nothing. Silence reigned instead. Okay. Are there any comments or questions from people, members not on the committee? Nothing. Catherine's very quiet. Okay. This is also for noting. Thank you. Thank you, Georgia. Moving on. The statement of accounts. Okay, I'll invite Louise in. You certainly can. Yeah, thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you. So this is the Statement of Accounts 22-23 report. The purpose of which is just to update committee members on adjustments made to the accounts since the committee met in November. And the recommendation is that the committee is asked to approve the statements which have been amended during the completion of the external audit. The adjustments that are made to the accounts have they're in paragraph 12 onwards. George has just mentioned them. It's the adjustments that had to be made to the pension. I think when we met in November, we just had the report back and we were still looking at how we needed to treat them in the accounts because it was an unusual situation. So that's been done, and also the adjustment to the property, plant and equipment where due to I think it was an error on our spreadsheet, some of the transactions had been made incorrectly, but we have corrected those now and we've put further checks in place so that it won't happen again. And just slightly further down in paragraph 15, we had two adjustments. They're not material, so they're not, the accounts won't be changed for them, but they're just noted there to do with the provision and some interest income on some of the accounts. But that's pretty much it. And I think we're there as far as the accounts are concerned.
Thank you, Jeannie. It sounds like we're just about ready to sign them off, aren't we? Okay, thanks for that. Okay, any questions from committee on this one, or thoughts or comments? This is going to be a short yes. Oh, good, Peter.
It's not really any comments, to be fair, Chair. It's just to say we pretty much approved these back in November, and we've just approved, obviously, the external audit report, which included the adjustments. So I think it's fairly simple, and I propose we approve these, Chair.
Excuse me. No other questions or statements? So we are being asked to further to approve the draft 22-23 statement of accounts at the Governance Committee on the 28th of November 2023. The committee is asked to approve the statements which have been amended during the completion of the external audit to include the adjustments detailed in point 12 below. And I've had a...
Sorry.
Yeah, go.
I was just going to check who the seconder was.
Yeah. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Wesley. Shall we have a show of hands for approval on that? I think that's approved. Thank you. Thank you again, Gina. Moving on. Last item. Risk management strategy. Is this yours, Dawn? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out our risk management strategy, which has been recently reviewed and updated to include the Council's risk appetite and escalation processes. So it was identified back in 23 in our annual governance statement that we needed to strengthen our risk management arrangements by including an appetite and how we escalate risks that are deemed to be of such a nature that we need to decide whether we tolerate them or put in further mitigation. So what we have done is in the risk management strategy is we've highlighted, we've set out in red what our risk management appetite is, why it's important, and what levels of risk we are prepared to accept and what we should do if risks reach that level. So as I say, all the changes to the strategy are highlighted in red. But yeah, I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you, Dawn. What I'd like to say is what a fantastic report this is. If you are reading this and you're not familiar with the topic or you're new to council, it's a fantastic report. It tells you what the objectives are. It describes what risk management is. It's all there. It's great. And I don't think there's any issues on it at all. But does anybody have any points or questions on this item? Pez.
Thanks. Yeah, no, echo what Colin said, and I know what the 4Ts are now, so that's always good. There was there's 3 references to kind of how we manage risk and how it's presented and who it's looked after, and it references the governance committee seeing the risk register. I think it says on like a frequent basis or regular basis. And I guess it's not a criticism, it's more of a kind of a going forward of, I don't necessarily feel I've seen it in a traditional risk register way before, or an agenda item on the committee. Now I could be wrong, and it's presented in different ways because we're always talking about risk and we're always managing it. But I just wondered going forward how we'd show it, so we're keeping up with what's in the risk management strategy.
Yeah, the comment there about the reviews the strategy and monitors the risk registers, it's in relation to the corporate risk register, and that comes to the committee in a traditional layout like you would expect to see. Is it twice a year? Twice a year. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on committee? No. Any comments or questions from people not on committee? Deathly silence. Okay, we need, this is a decision, this one. So I need a proposer.
Propose that, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder. Wesley. And are we all in agreement? We'll accept it? Yeah. Good. Done. That closes the meeting. And thank you everybody for your contributions and your attendance. Thank you, Will, for attending and for your contributions. And we'll say good night and thank you.